Greetings and welcome to this show. The purpose of this show is to share perspectives and discuss things on a level that may disrupt your reality. Tonight, I want to focus on the state of Bermuda tourism. As well, many of you know, my career, my first love is radio and television. However, I currently and have previously worked in the tourism space, both in hotels, retail, and destination marketing. Like many Bermudans, I've been lucky to have traveled to so many destinations and experienced different cultures beyond the tourist boundaries. So tonight, I thought it would be worth the conversation with fellow Bermudians about the state of Bermuda tourism as a destination. Let's get started. First off, if you're out there, just shout me. Let me know you're there. Put something in the comments. Say, "Yo, here. Let's do a roll call." Just say "I." Secondly, this is no holds barred. This we need to have some conversations. I am concerned for the Bermudian people. I'm concerned because I don't think that information is provided or given in a manner that it should be given. But also, I'm concerned because I don't quite believe that we know and understand what certain things that contribute to our livelihoods are. And we'll start with tourism today. So, what is tourism? Like, do we all know what tourism is? Like, do you understand what tourism? Tourism is one of the main pillars for Bermuda's economy, right? Tourism has changed in my lifetime. And I don't think that we quite understand why it's changed, how it's changed, and most of all, I don't think we believe the words that come out of our mouths. I don't think we believe the words that come out of our mouths. Patricia Ferguson here. Hello, how are you? We've got Traveling Truddy. I expect a lot from you, Traveling Truddy. You've traveled. And Sharina Marshall. Hey, hey, sister. So let's get to it. Obviously, there was some news that came out yesterday involving the Bermuda Tourism Authority. The Bermuda Tourism Authority, founded in 2014, if I'm not mistaken, under the guidance of the One Bermuda Alliance government. The Bermuda Tourism Authority, basically the mandate is to drive tourism to Bermuda. That's the short version. Bermuda Tourism Authority hired the first Black Bermudian CEO full time, Charles Jaffers, last year. Mr. Jaffers, as of yesterday, is no longer the CEO. Mr. Jaffers, a man with great experience in tourism beyond Bermuda, having spent time at Baltimore Tourism Bureau as well as in Atlanta. But Bermuda's a different beast. Bermuda's a different beast when it comes to tourism from that perspective. I remember saying to Mr. Bill Henberry, first CEO of the Bermuda Tourism Authority, who I thought was a very good person for the job. Let me just say that. I remember Mr. Henberry, and I asked him, look, how do you think you're going to handle the politics that is Bermuda tourism? And he says, well, look, I'm coming from DC. That's politics. But I said, no, politicians in DC don't even know what tourism is. They have no interest. In Bermuda, it's a political football. I say that because we have to have this conversation about tourism, folks. We have to have a conversation. And what is the conversation we need to have? Well, let me put a question to you. The first question that I'll put as I dive into the conversation tonight is, what have you experienced during your travels that you'd like to see in Bermuda? I started Bermuda Tourism. I've worked at Bermuda Tourism 2012. I worked with the Department of Tourism through 2014, and then I went to the authority. And on my first day, I think it was, we had someone that's in the tourism space say to me, I was speaking about, Bermuda's beauty and, the product and everything. And this person said to me, Jay, stop. Bermuda doesn't have product. And it hit me. And it took me years to realize that despite the people, and let me be clear, I love the Bermudian people. We are a unique being. But despite the brilliance and the intelligence and the friendliness of the people, Despite my love for gumbears and the food like fish sandwiches, fish dinners, and spiny lobster, I think we have made ourselves believe something that we don't even really feel. And what is that? That Bermuda is a top tier tourist destination. We have made ourselves believe that the things that we love, cop match, that others would love them too. That's not how tourism works. We made ourselves believe because we like fish sandwiches and we should put a fish sandwich on a billboard that people will travel to Bermuda. Folks, I'm here to tell you tonight, Bermuda can't compete in its current state, regardless of who's the CEO of the Bermuda Tourism Authority, regardless of who the government is, regardless of how many times we repeat on the internet that Bermuda is a beautiful place and the best beaches. And oh, my favorite, I said it the other day, I live where you vacation. The conversation is this: we always speak about the government and how they have run out of funds and they don't have any money. We need to have an honest conversation whether or not we should still be putting millions of dollars into Bermuda's tourism product or begin focusing elsewhere. Because Bermuda in its current state can't compete. In the question, I'm asking you, what have you experienced during your travels that you'd like to see in Bermuda? So here's where I want to speak to you and educate you a bit about tourism. You know what drives tourism? Number one, it's the same thing in most businesses. It's relationships. It's relationships. Unless you have people in position with the right relationships, a fish sandwich is not going to cut it. This is real. This is honest. I look, you can ask Charles Jeffers, you can ask Bill Henbury, you can ask Billy Griffith, former director of Bermuda Tourism and former CEO of Barbados Inc., right? The number one thing that's going to help Bermuda tourism recover is relationships. If you don't have people with the relationships, it's going to be tough. And I'm going to say something right now that a lot of people aren't going to like. You know what's going to have to happen if you really want Bermuda to get people through those doors? You're going to need people with relationships, and those people with relationships are going to be non-Bermudian. They're going to be non-Bermudian. That's step one in helping Bermuda recover. You're going to need non-Bermudians, sales, chief sales, marketing, people who have relationships to put Bermuda in the conversation with decision makers. These people may work for other destinations. They may be from other countries. But that's what you need to do. That's what needs to happen. But it's not going to happen as long as politicians think that they have the answers for tourism. Politicians are not experts at anything, not even winning elections, because they don't do that. Remember, elections are not won, they're lost. For Bermuda to bounce back, we need people with relationships. That's step number one. Do you hear me? I want to go back to the question. You see it scrolling down bottom. What have you experienced during your travels that you'd like to see in Bermuda? Patricia Ferguson says, I definitely would love to see an all-inclusive. When I travel, I always look for that. Well, let me address that. We've spoken about all-inclusives. I think the worst thing for Bermuda would be an all-inclusive. Dubai doesn't have all-inclusives. Small little towns in middle America that are whooping Bermuda's ass don't have all-inclusives. For Bermuda, an all-inclusive would be damaging to the economy because Bermuda is a destination where we rely on people eating in the restaurants and shopping and enjoying things off property. An all-inclusive will not and cannot work for Bermuda as a destination. That's just based on my experience. Traveling Trotty says, I think our current product is a bit old and outdated. And then Traveling Trotty goes on to say more developed beach services, local nightlife, and living museums. I think you're onto something right there. Beach services. How many beaches have services on them, like food and drink and so on? Relationships. That was number one. Number two, group business drives tourism, folks. Whether it's Smurf, whether it's incentive trips. I got a request just yesterday for an incentive group looking to visit Bermuda. Now, let me explain what incentive means. So let's say you work at Bank of Trotty, right? And the Bank of Trotty has 400 employees and they want to reward their top 20 salespeople on an incentive trip. That instead of giving them a raise, they give them a raise and an incentive. We're going to take you on a trip to Bermuda. We're going to give you spending money while you're there. The lady from Spanx did it with her employees. That's what drives tourism. How does that drive tourism? Well, think what made Bermuda a tourist destination, really. It was you had a big thing that contributed to Bermuda as a tourism destination was the college days. Remember those college days, spring break back then? Well, what happened was those people came to Bermuda on college days. Then they came back when they got married. Then they came back for the honeymoon, right? They came back with their children, their family. Those people are pretty much old, dead, nearly dead, right? So now Bermuda needs something that's going to get people there, right? And then they'll keep coming back. Incentive trips, group trips, meetings. So let's talk about meetings. What about meetings? Well, you have big corporations that always looking for destinations to have meetings, right? That's why you have convention centers. Vegas and Orlando, the big destinations in the US, right? Everyone thinks people flock to Vegas just for gambling and the shows. No, they're convention space, meetings, incentives, right? You have a lot of things to do that. Everybody thinks people are flocking to Orlando, right? For Disney World and all the parks. No, it's meetings, incentives, Smurf. It's group business. You would never know that if you're not in the tourism space. But this is why, as a people, we need to collectively educate ourselves on what tourism is instead of thinking that it's simply about, oh, I'm Bermudian. Who does it better? Where's the most beautiful sunset? You can go anywhere in the world and pretty much get a damn sunset. Let's stop making ourselves believe this bullshit. This is not the daily hour, so I will use any language I please. Seriously, we have to wake up. We have got to come to our senses and understand that there's more to tourism than a pretty picture and social media and talking and all. Like, folks, there's a lot of destinations that have a lot more to offer than Bermuda. Let's look at in New York State the other day. There was a hotel property opening up, and every person gets their own boat on this lake in this property. That's a unique experience. What hotel in Bermuda offers a unique experience that someone would want to go there for? Grotto Bay, I love it. They have this spa in the cave. You can swim in the cave. Those are unique. People are looking for different types of experiences. And I just don't believe there's anything in Bermuda that someone will say, oh, I'm going to Bermuda because I can't do this anywhere else. Let's go back to Traveling Trotty says, are most tourism boards around privatized? Well, let's give some, thank you for this question. Folks, I'm going to break this down for you. Let's talk about the Bermuda Tourism Authority, right? I believe that either government needs to make a decision and take it back into government if there's going to be politicians overseeing it, or it needs to be self-funded. Well, let me tell you the challenge with Bermuda Tourism Authority being self-funded. You look at other destinations, they're funded, right? They are funded by room tax. Well, friends, I just had to, let me bring this up for you. Let me share my screen. I'm going to share my screen so that you can see, it's no point in having a conversation without a little bit of stats, right? So let's bring this up. So this is historical data presented May 2020 by the Bermuda Tourism Authority. But what I want to go down to, and we'll go through this, right? What I want to go to is tourism budget. And you'll see here, let me make this bigger for you. You'll see here that in 2014, when the BTA came about, you see that looks like million, right? 3 million. And that pink is coming from guest revenue, right? So most destinations, oh, sorry, you couldn't see my screen. I'm sorry, folks. So you see it now. So most destinations, they're tourism organizations, right? The tourism bureaus, they are not funded by government. So let's give an example. Let's say the City Tourism Council. All of our funding would come from the bed nights. The people, when you go, you might see on your bill 2.5% towards whatever, right? That's where the money comes from. Bermuda, the challenge with Bermuda doesn't have any rooms. Bermuda only has what? 1,600 bedrooms, right? Right now, with the big hotel closed. So, because of that, they cannot generate enough money to fund themselves. So they have to rely, as you see in the blue, they have to rely on government grants. And as long as the government is granting them, the government's not going to want to get out of the way because they feel like it's our money. You get me? So that's problem number one with the tourism authority, the tourism organization. They, if they're self-funded, which is hard to do with no room nights in Bermuda, right? Then people will be, I guess, it'll be easier for them to do their job. But as long as they're getting a government grant, the government's going to feel the need, rightfully or not, to have a say. That's the challenge with the Bermuda Tourism Authority. So I hope that answers your question, Traveling Trotty, about privatized. Most of the tourist boards and organizations fund themselves through this room bed night tax. Bermuda, the people of Bermuda, you all tuned in right now, all of you, you need to put pressure. Either the government dissolves the Bermuda Tourism Authority and takes it back in under Bermuda Department of Tourism, or the Bermuda Tourism Authority finds a way to become self-funded full-time. That's what needs to happen so that they can make progress. Let's go. We've got another question. Traveling Trotty says, when flights arrive and depart, I would like to see ground agents say, welcome to Bermuda and thank you for visiting Bermuda, a small gesture that can make an impact for leisure tourists. Little things like that are not little. They matter. They matter. And it's things that you remember. But let's talk about the hotel properties, right? All of us have traveled to other destinations. We've seen hotels. Now, Patricia Ferguson mentioned all-inclusive, would like to see an all-inclusive. From a person who works in a space in destinations, Vegas doesn't have an all-inclusive. Orlando doesn't have an all-inclusive. And I'm only focusing on the US because a lot of Bermudians travel here. But thankfully, more Bermudians are traveling to South America and Africa, right? And you realize these places, they don't need all-inclusives. The reason we think all-inclusive is because the Caribbean. We have to take ourselves out of the Caribbean conversation. And we have to see ourselves as a destination. Bermuda was once the leader in tourism, folks. Bermuda was once a leader in tourism. But how did we fall off? We fell off because tourism was not priority number one. International business became the priority. We fell off because many Bermudians moved away from tourism. We fell off because investing in a hotel in Bermuda no longer made sense. Look, we're competing with destinations that didn't exist when I was born. I'm 40 years old. When I was born, when some of your children were born, a place like Dubai was a desert. It was a desert. And we failed as a destination to respond to that threat. We can't think that because we have beaches and nice weather 7-8 months of the year that people just want to come to Bermuda. We can't think that. I mean, I have been blessed to travel to some places, be it South Africa, Mauritius, Antigua, Barcelona, all over the US, whether it's Napa Valley, New England, throughout New England, to Vegas and Orlando, throughout the Caribbean. Bermuda can't compete. I don't say this to be negative, but it's reality. And we need to wake up and we need to get to work. We need to get to work. So, as far as hotel properties, the most beautiful property in Bermuda only has 36 rooms. The Lauren. You may beg to differ, but I think the most beautiful property in Bermuda is the Lauren at Pink Beach. But 36 rooms? That's not much. Then you have Hamilton Princess, which we all should be pretty grateful that the Green brothers invested in. It's an awesome hotel. It's a brilliant hotel. It's a beautiful hotel right in the city. But to get to the beach, it's an inconvenience to people. They want beach right at their hotel. And then we have the newly opened St. Regis. Go read the Point Sky story on that. It wasn't good for Bermuda. It was not good. Then we have Grotto Bay, one of my favorites, actually. Grotto Bay is a nice hotel to me, but is it enough to get people to Bermuda? They do have an all-inclusive option, but is it enough? Think about where you've traveled. Think about places that you've loved. Is it enough to get people to Bermuda? Ask yourself that. Ask yourself, if you weren't Bermudian, what would make you want to visit Bermuda? What would make you want to do it? Ask yourself. Let's move on to activities and attractions. Does Bermuda have activities and attractions that are going to get people to the island? What kind of activities have you done elsewhere that you'd like to see done in Bermuda? What have you done? Teray Tull says, what are your thoughts on the success failure of St. Regis? Well, I have quite a few complaints about, not complaints, but feedback on the St. Regis. Number one is, as I just mentioned, the article I read from the Point Sky. It was a person who was paid to come to Bermuda to review it. And they said it's the worst St. Regis they have ever stayed in. I haven't been there. My wife's been there. She's gave some interesting feedback as well. As far as location of the tub in the rooms, I know a lot of challenges Bermudians had was that certain jobs that are usually protected are not protected at St. Regis. I may feel a bit different from a lot of Bermudians because, as I said earlier, from a business side, we're going to need non-Bermudians to help us get back on track if we're to save tourism. We're going to need the experts to help us get back on track to save tourism. Bermuda tourism is in a shithole right now. It's in a shithole right now. And I don't think that we are honest about how bad it is. And let me be clear. There are a lot of people doing a lot of wonderful things, offering a lot of wonderful services to our guests and locals alike. You've got Rashida Godwin and her family with Titan Tours, Titan Express doing the historical tours. Yeah. We've got people doing a lot of stuff to attract and entertain tourists. We have people who started companies, tourist-friendly businesses, right? There are a lot of people doing work. But folks, we have to ask ourselves and be honest when we're answering. Is it enough? What are some of the attractions that we see elsewhere that we can do in Bermuda? I'll tell you this. Places, I remember years ago, people complaining about Bermuda, we don't have zip lining. We don't have zip lining. And then you ask yourself, when I was in St. Lucia last year, they're like, you're from Bermuda and you don't have zip lining and rainforest in it. No, Bermuda's a different island. We don't have rainforest. But just because we don't have rainforest doesn't mean that we can't excel in other areas. We have things to offer, but we need to figure out what's unique. What's going to be that decision, that thing that makes someone make a decision and say, I'm coming to Bermuda. Then we have the people who want to do things, and Nachika Trot mentions ATV. We have people who want to do stuff And when they want to do stuff and develop, and we have a group of people that always say no, it's bad for the environment. I'm not an environmentalist. I'm not going to sit here and criticize environmentalists. I'm not an expert on any of that. But we have to make a decision. Now, I want to address something. It's Pride Month. Happy Pride to all of you that celebrate it. But there's been questions about Bermuda rejecting marriage, equality, same sex marriage, whatever, however you want to address it, impact in tourism. Let me say this: the World Cup's in Qatar later this year. Dubai is kicking our ass. Have you seen those countries' records on human rights and homosexuality? What I will say, they can afford, I guess, to have a bad human rights record. Bermuda can't. We can't. Bermuda as a destination can't afford to discriminate against anyone. Free up the island. Let those people do their ATV tours. Let people be creative and find ways to entertain our guests. We need to figure out what it is we're good at without overdoing it. And when we do that, we need to share it in a way where it's not over commercialized. We need to find a way. This is the next question. What do you believe? What do you think is the biggest obstacle to the growth of Bermuda tourism, and how can we overcome it? I'm going to tell you what I think it is right now. I think the biggest obstacle to the growth of Bermuda tourism is politics. I believe the biggest obstacle to the growth of Bermuda tourism is politics. Politics, when I say politics, I mean the red tape to get things done. I mean the politicians who know nothing about tourism, have no understanding of it. And I don't care if you had experience as a minister or a junior minister. If you have not worked in this space, I don't quite think you understand how it works. It's not about getting celebrities down and them going on social media and sharing pictures. Celebrities do that for everywhere. I have never, ever, and I'm speaking for me, but I have never wanted to visit somewhere just because I saw a celebrity there. If anything, I don't want to go because they've been there. We need the politicians to get out of the way. That's one of the biggest obstacles. We need to allow the experts to work. We need to allow people to create plans, and through those plans, execute them, the strategies and the plans to get people back to work. You know, the late Walter Brown once said in the House of Assembly, he says, we need to get Bermudians back in hospitality industry. My parents worked seasonal, and they were able to build our house and raise their children. Walter Brown said that. Many years ago, I was working at doing a talk show at a radio station in Bermuda, and a man called up and he said, why would I want my children to get into tourism making such and such on somebody's front desk? I understand it. But we also have to start from somewhere. We have to start from somewhere. And we can't have it both ways. We can't have Bermudians who don't want to work in this space and then be mad when a non-Bermudian does. Come on now. Come on now. Patricia Ferguson, she says, I always thought we could offer extreme sports challenges. We could attract cliff divers and have a competition. I remember Craig Kennedy said some years ago getting the Red Bull Championship to Bermuda. I think it's awesome. I think things like that could work. I wasn't a fan of the America's Cup. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think we should be spending money on things like countries that spend money on the World Cup and the Olympics. I don't like that idea. I have a book right here, folks. I have a book right here next to me, and I haven't started reading yet. It's called Field of Schemes, right? Field of Schemes. And it's about these billionaires who go to different cities, right? And they buy these sports teams and they threaten the taxpayers, which is the government there, that if you don't give us money to build a new stadium, we're going to take the team and leave. That's why I didn't like the idea of the America's Cup. I don't think we should be paying billionaires It wasn't about whether it was good for Bermuda or not. Yeah, I think it was good for Bermuda. Temporary, but it gave a boost. I think events like that help. Politics aside, I think events like that help. Chico Trot says, do you think Bermuda tourism industry will ever recover to its glory years? And if so, how? How long will it take? Well, let's take another look at the stats. Let's go back to the stats here, Chico. Let's go back. So these stats, let's go back to 1990. Let's see which ones we want to look at. Visitor arrivals, right? So I want to ignore cruise ship. The reason I want to ignore cruise ship is because the cruise ship numbers are a bit dodgy. And when I say dodgy, the cruise ships are larger now. So you have cruise ships bringing 1,500 people. Now a cruise ship's bringing what, 4,000, right? So dodgy. But also, we all know cruise visitors don't really spend money. We know that. But let's look at 1990, right? Look at the blue, 435,000, right? Now, the Bermuda Tourism Authority, and I'm talking about the blue, that's air arrivals. The Bermuda Tourism Authority from 2014 to 2019, the highest number based on these stats on their website, the highest number, 282,000 in 2018. 282,000. To answer your question, Traveling Trotty, I do not believe that Bermuda will return to its glory years for one reason. We are failing to attract. We're failing to attract investment. And when I say investment, we need hotels to get to those numbers. We can't do it with 1,500, 1,600 rooms. We need hotels. And there are so many other destinations that make more sense. It costs much less to build hotels. We will have to give up a lot, compromise on a lot to get these hotels. So I don't think in our lifetimes we will ever get back there. I hope I'm wrong. And I hope that Bermuda can return to those days. Shayna Smith, she says, you said what I'm thinking, government and the unnecessary red tape. That's what's holding us back in many areas, including tourism. Absolutely. I don't think anyone would disagree that the government holds us back. And that's my fear of Bermuda becoming, that's my fear of Bermuda, the Bermuda tourism going back into government. But we need to figure out a way to make the Bermuda Tourism Authority independent if we're not going to take it into government. But government need not have any say in how the operation and the running of tourism goes. It's not helpful. I'd like to know where it works and where it's been successful. Danielle Painter says, I think our own people are holding us back. We don't like change. 30% of our population will be 65 years in 5 years. 65 years old in 5 years. And she says, the older you get, the less you like change. And they are who the government is catering to votes for. I couldn't have said it any better, Danielle. This is a reality. This is true. This is true. And one of my biggest fears of growing old wasn't dying. It wasn't. One of my biggest fears was literally not evolving and being able to adapt to what would actually make my life better. We have to communicate to the elders, to the older population, how they benefit from these changes. But we are our own worst enemy. We have been a conservative destination, and conservative destinations don't progress. Teray Tolt asked, what are my thoughts on TA forms and process? Well, I welcomed the news in the United States yesterday. The news in the United States that the U.S. is no longer going to require testing, right, before visiting. Well, Bermuda, I think you should kind of take note. I think, traveling is something that should be easy for us, right? Traveling, when you go away and you travel, it should be easy. You want to relax. You want to enjoy it. You should not have to worry about things that are going to stress you and make your trip a living hell from the beginning. I think the travel authorization, for what it's worth, at this point, it's bullshit. Seriously. And I think, as I stated on the Daily Hour recently, the government would do well to create an app or do something to make it easier for the people who are traveling to Bermuda. The Chica Traveling Trotty says, I think Bermuda would benefit from a cheaper hotel chain like Holiday Inn, Motel 6, or hostels. There are some really nice hostels. Well, see, the challenge with Bermuda is it's so small. And while under the recently, I would say I give the Bermuda Tourism Authority credit for focusing on Black tourism and sports tourism and so on. But the focus that the people they're targeting don't necessarily reflect this. Now let me just take it to another level to really break it down and answer the question. The challenge with a Holiday Inn, Motel 6, or hostels is they may be great cheap hotels, but then they have to go out to eat. And you all know the story. Well, I'm going to tell you. I'll never forget, I brought my wife and her family to Bermuda before we were married and sent them shopping. And they went to the grocery store. Mind you, it was miles, but they went to the grocery store and couldn't believe the price of grapes was $16. We're talking grapes, it's $2.99 in New Jersey, right? So the challenge with bringing and I'll give you an example. So we had what it was called, the pink sale back in the day when I was working at Bermuda Tourism, pink sale. So people were like, oh, great. And it might have been like, spend 2 nights, you get 3 nights free, something like that. I can't remember, but they had this pink sale. The challenge with that was the people were coming for cheap hotel prices, right? But then they couldn't afford to eat. That's the problem that we present. So hopefully, let me know if that makes sense to you, Traveling Trotty. Like, that's the challenge. I would love to see it, but it doesn't balance with the economics, the economy of Bermuda. Patricia Ferguson says, I think religion has a lot of play in this as well. Religion has had a lot of say. I don't disagree. I think that's part of the conservatism. But at the end of the day, we have to communicate with people what's in it for them, how they benefit. For instance, whether it's gaming, Bermuda missed that boat. Cannabis, Bermuda missed that boat. People of the same sex or gay people or LGBTQ plus, right? We missed that boat. There's still time to do everything. But I take your point, Patrica. Gary Moreno says, any resurgence of tourism must involve creating a desire among the Bermudian population for tourism success. To quote former Premier Dr. Ewart Brown, service is not servitude. I have that book right here. And that line in there, I've repeated on the Daily Hour time and time again. Service is not servitude, folks. And he used Turks and Caicos as an example. When you go to the Turks and Caicos, even Bahamas, I've heard, I've never been there, but you go there, guess who you see smiling and working in those restaurants? You bet your boots it's the people, the locals from TCI. And I agree with Gary Moreno because, we have to, we can't have it both ways. One thing I have never bitched and moaned about is non-Bermudians working in Bermuda. You know why? Let me tell you why. Because I was blessed and lucky to be able to travel as a child with my mother and my father and my family. And every city we visited. Where are you from? Bermuda. Oh, I'm from such and such. They were never from the place where they were working, folks. I understand how important immigration is for growth of any economy. That's why you can go back on tape, radio, and television, and you can probably never see me criticizing foreign people because I understand the need. However, we can't bitch and moan about non-Bermudians working in our hotels if we are not willing to do it. But that goes back to Mr. Moreno's comment where he says we have to create that desire for the Bermudian population. Remember what I told you? I was working at a radio station doing a show in Bermuda some years ago. And a gentleman called up, I don't want my child working on that front desk. I have to spend all this money in college. Your child could have started on that front desk and ended up the general manager, been the next Alan True or Richard Quinn. Yeah. Or Clyde Darrell. But we don't think like that. We don't think like that. Tourism is dependent upon us. Let's go back to a few comments. Traveling Trotty says, yes, I understand what you're saying. When my family comes to visit, they bring their own food. Interesting. Patricia Ferguson says, we have death priced ourselves priced ourselves. People living here can't afford to eat. Danielle Painter says, I want unique experiences and value for my money when traveling. I went to dinner last night and called beforehand to make a res for 6 people and was told I better arrive in 10 minutes to be there by 9 p.m. Wow. Let me share this with you. Let me share this with you. Last weekend, we went to a new restaurant called Sexy Fish in Miami for a friend, another Bermudian who lives out here in South Florida, where I am. And we spent the weekend in Miami. Stayed in a very upscale property called the Moxie, uh, right on the road over from Collins. Really nice property. I'm not built for South Beach. Folks, I'm 40 years old. I can't do South Beach. So you go to other things. They have other things. I went to an art museum just this week in Palm Beach. I'm doing things as I get older and evolving as a person that I wouldn't have done 2 or 5 years ago. When you're in business and you want people, you have to be creative. And if I go to that art museum at 8:30 and they close at 9, do you think they're going to turn me away because they close at 9? Chances are they're not. One thing people respect out here is reviews, and no one wants a bad review. And Danielle Painter says that basically seemed to make me feel like they don't need our money. You won't get that in most places outside of Bermuda. They respect and understand what you bring to the table. Traveling Trotty says, what do you think about paying airlines guaranteed funding to offset a minimum load factor or seat capacity? Well, let's talk about this. I will have to find something that I developed when I worked at the Bermuda Tourism Authority. Instead of a guarantee, it was a promotion. That promotion, you sell it to groups, and I'll share it here with you. What you do is you say, well, look, we'll cover your air travel, right? The group, you have to have a minimum of 50 people, 25 rooms. And you have to travel between November and March. Why November and March? Because those are the shouldest months for Bermuda tourism. So I said, we cover the cost of your airline, right? They pay for their hotel, they pay food, put money into the economy. Here's the catch. They come that one time, they have to come 2 other times. So a total of 3 times within 36 months, which is 3 years. That's what we need to do. We don't need to give money away. We need to put money where it's going to drive more revenue through promotions. I gave that promotion to them. It was rejected. But those are the kind of things we need to do. Not just give guaranteed revenue for funding to airlines, but be smart about it. We need to go to market with sales, marketing, promotional ideas. Patricia Ferguson says, we were also told to go and study business hospitality. Stop being pushed as a career choice. Well, here's the thing. I did my master's at Johnson & Wales University, where it's known for tourism and hospitality. And the people that were doing the hospitality courses in tourism loved it. You know where they were from? They were from Germany. They were from India, Nepal. They were from the Middle East, whether it was Yemen. They were from Saudi Arabia. They were from the United Arab Emirates. Those were the people. When we think tourism as Bermudians, we only think the Caribbean, right? Let's go. Let's just say, because we got to wrap it up. I don't want to keep you all too long. But the idea that Bermuda lacks hotel product, we lack value in hotels in Bermuda, right? And we need to ask ourselves, are these hotels enough to draw people to Bermuda? What I would like to see for Bermuda tourism to bounce back, here's my ideas. Number one, we need to invest in Bermudians to get Bermudians, as someone mentioned, excited about the industry again. It's what we need to do. We need to remove politics and politicians from tourism. We need to remove politics and politicians from tourism. Number three, we need to go all out to get the best sales and marketing people in the world to come and work for Bermuda and promote it and sell it and market it as a tourist destination. We need to develop plans where those best people that we bring in the world need to train Bermudians so that when they move on, Bermudians can then take those positions and market, sell, and promote Bermuda at the highest level. What's that called? Succession planning. We need to be creative in driving investment and hoteliers to Bermuda. Find out what others are doing and then figure out what we can do. We need to let the experts be experts. We need Bermuda tourism to work for the Bermudian people. This wasn't a conversation to talk down on Bermuda tourism, or the Bermudian people. The purpose of this conversation was for all of us to get our heads out of our asses, to stop believing our own hype, stop believing the bullshit that Bermuda is this unique destination that has pretty beaches, the best sunset. It doesn't. It doesn't. I can go to 100 places within a 25-mile radius in Palm Beach and find better than what you would find in Bermuda. Trust me. It's not hate. It's the reality. Stop believing our own hype and let's get our hands dirty and find ways to improve Bermuda as a tourism destination. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel. We're going to have a lot of conversations like this. I really appreciate you all engaging, and you can tell me what topics we want to discuss. But I'll tell you what's on my mind. I found out that there were only 6 graduates in the 12th grade from Bermuda Institute. 6 graduates at Bermuda Institute, 12th grade. So I begged the question, and I asked the question, is this because there's less births in Bermuda, the birth rate? Is it because more parents are sending their children overseas for a better education? Is it the economy? People can no longer afford to send their children to private school? Folks, we've got a lot of conversations to have. And I want to have them with you in a bid to make Bermuda better for everybody. Black Bermudians, white Bermudians, tall Bermudians, short Bermudians. I want to make it a better place for all of us. And don't believe because I'm not living in Bermuda full time, I can't help to improve it. My work's being done beyond this mic. And if you believe that I can help you in any way, please reach out, subscribe, follow me on Instagram or Twitter. Let's have some conversations. Danielle Painter says, can you do a convo on retail in Bermuda? Yes, I can. I would love to do that. Love to do it. So maybe that can be one of our conversations over the next couple of weeks. She says, an industry that employs 4,000 plus people and is also dying with online shopping. Let's have that conversation because I have a couple of partners that I speak to about that. Groceries. I have a lot of people I speak to that about regularly. So we can talk about the plastic and impact on our health and birth rates. Let's do it, Danielle. Let's do it. Thank you so much for your contribution. Folks, please do enjoy the rest of your weekend. And I hope Bermuda's doing well. I know a lot of people said it was the same time as the game tonight, but the great thing is this show is not going anywhere. I'm here to have some unfiltered conversations. Cut the bullshit. Let's get our country on track. And let's stand up to the people who have become obstacles to our progress. And most of them are in jobs because of a vote, not because of their skill set or ability. Jamel Hardtman. Thanks. I'm out. Peace.